is time for moving on to our panel discussion on data transformation with the topic Building a Data-centric Strategy for Digital Acceleration. While the organizations on a transformational journey should rethink current data paradigms and analyze every aspect of their business for potential growth factors. With big data and analytics, businesses have become more data focused, thus optimizing their existing processes and improving financial outcomes. We're looking at talking about reimagining the organization with data as its core, driving home the tenets of data governance and ethical data. We're looking at talking about data, machine learning, model platform which enable organizations to operationalize data and analytics to drive business value, modernizing legacy systems, small and wide data as opposed to big data, exploring the implementation risks of artificial intelligence and machine learning to protect your business, targeted marketing with social analytics, applications of big data and edge computing for threat detections in IoT, and deploy new models, leveraging agile and remote. Well, for this, we're joined by our eminent panelists. First up, Dr. Mary Rosich, the Chief Data Officer, Standard Chartered Bank. Dr. Mary leads a team of data scientists, AI experts, and data engineers. Her current and recent recognitions include 100 Women in Tech by SG Computer Society and IMDA Government, 30 People Who Are Changing the World by the London Business Review magazine, amongst others. Thank you so much, Dr. Mary, for joining us. We're also joined by Rahul Saxena, Group IT Director, Commercial Digital Commerce and Analytics, the CocaCola Company. Rahul is currently driving digital transformation strategy and execution for Coca-Cola's big commercial operations. He's somebody who's building cloud solutions, establishing an enterprise data lake, rolling out digital commerce solutions, and driving new agile and networked way of working across the group. Thank you so much, Rahul, for joining us. We also have Peter Lee, Head of Customer Loyalty, Payment and Big Data, plus Malaysia, Berhad. Peter has extensive experience in big data, strategic marketing, analytics, open payment, as well as development, implementation, and operations of digital and business transformation programs. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. We're also joined by Juan Intan Kangrawan, the Head of Data Analytics, Jakarta Smart City. Juan is the current Head of Data Analytics at the Jakarta Smart City, where his key role is to fully utilize data to formulate public policy and to improve the quality of public services. He's actively analyzing complex and diverse urban data on a daily basis, citizen compliant, aspiration, transportation, mobility, health, COVID-19, flood, CCTV, etc. Thank you so much, Juan, for joining us. We're also joined by our panelist, Kirill Udinsov, the Head of Data Science, Home Credit Indonesia. Well, Kirill is the Head of Data Science of the Home Credit Indonesia with more than 7 years of proven experience in building and leading a team of data enthusiasts. He's somebody who's skilled in statistical modeling, predictive analytics, predictive modeling, text mining, and risk management. Thank you so much, Kirill, for joining us. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to introduce to you the moderator of the panel discussion. We're now joined by Soni Supriyadi, the Head Pricing and Data Analytics, Maybank. Soni is a seasoned professional and has been assigned to various pricing and data analytics initiatives in Asia, Europe, and North America. These include a leading transformation to optimize existing or newly established platforms and or departments from developing people and organization, business model, processes, as well as systems and platforms. Thank you so much, Soni, for joining us. Well, with this, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to have the entire panel on your stage and screen. With this, over to you, Soni, to moderate it forward.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is another event regarding data transformations. And we will be discussing immediately about building a data-centric strategy for digital accelerations. With me, I'm Soni Supriyadi from Maybank. I will be the moderator of this discussion. I have Dr. Mary Rosich. Rosich, is that how do you pronounce your name? Yes.
Yeah, Mary Rosich.
Rosich, okay. And then we have Peter Lee, we have Juan Kangrawan, We have Kirill Odinsov and Rahul Sasikna. All of these esteemed panelists, they will be introducing themselves. Who are they actually? What business are they coming from? The experience, and so on. Let's start with Dr. Mary Roshik.
Thank you, Sunny. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm CDO for Standard Chartered Bank Commercial Business. And I have the privilege of leading the data teams in transforming the organization into a data culture, creating business value with data, and using innovative data solutions to unlock emerging trade and sustainable growth. And this is the core of our business. I've had a global career working in 6 countries for financial services, telco, always working with data and using data as a transformational tool for the organization.
Fantastic. Right, who's next? I'm going to open to everyone. Peter, possibly?
Yeah, thank you, Sonny. So it's my pleasure to be here in this session today. So I'm actually Peter Lee. I'm in the Plus Malaysia Berhad, one of the biggest highway operator in Malaysia. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to join this company, and there's a lot of data transformation that we have ongoing, and since a year plus ago. Yeah. On top of it, I'm also looking into the customer loyalty as well as cashless payment as part of the implementations. So my past experience has been always regarding analytics, machine learning, data, you name it, cutting across multiple industry, from banking to telcos to resources to now in the highway operators. So I'm looking forward for the session, and thanks, Sonny.
Thank you, fantastic. What about you, Kirill?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kirill Odinsov. My background is finance, and always I was doing some kind of analytics or modeling in finance. At the moment, I'm head of data science in Home Credit Indonesia. Basically, there we are trying to focus on underbanked population. This is why we kind of need data science to really understand, to be able to know who has good credit history, who not, without actually having any credit history or actually potential to pay. And what I would say is very interesting in home credit, we have, our team is helping all other departments with data science, so not only risk, which is quite typical, but also CRM, sales, and all other departments, which is fairly exciting for me. And from experience, basically, I think from most important, this is already the second data science team that I started. And also when I was in my first team in Prague, we were organizing the largest Kaggle competition at that time. So that's it from me.
Fantastic, great. Rahul, your turn.
Thanks, Sonny. This is Rahul Saxena. Currently working with the CocaCola Bottling Investments Group as Group Director for Commercial Business in IT, and I look at digitization of commercial business, digital commerce, and data and analytics capabilities. In past, I worked with some IT companies, some small names like Procter and Gamble, GlaxoSmithKline, and now with Coke. So from an industry perspective, I've been in core IT development, service industry, consulting industry, consumer goods, healthcare, and now beverages. From a geography perspective, I think I've been working in almost all markets in Asia apart from North Korea for a long time, a little bit in Latin America, a little bit of Eastern Europe, North America as well. And my career has spanned through IT roles as well as some commercial roles in the past, and now back into IT. Now, primarily, data analytics has never been part of my job as head of data, but somehow in every role I've done, data and science has become a big part of what we do. And most of my roles have been around organization transformation. And what we can talk about later is, how organization transformation is actually a journey on starting through your data transformation, and then it becomes the leading edge. So happy to be here. Looking forward to talk to everyone and learn from all of you guys.
Brilliant, brilliant, fantastic. Last but not least, my friend from Jakarta as well, Juan Kangrawan.
Hi, hello, Pasoni. Nice to see you here. And thanks for all the other panelists and all the audience here. My name is Juan Kangarawan. I'm the head of data analytics at Jakarta Smart City. So my so-called goal is quite straightforward: how to make decisions based on the city or urban data. Covers, let's say, like traffic jam, flood, and also about the air quality, even recently the COVID-19 context. So in the end, what I am striving is to improve the public policy and also the public services based on data. So I think just to share a bit, so in the past 1 or 2 weeks, we are very occupied with the context of COVID-19 in Jakarta and also the vaccination. So I and my team, we are building the dashboard, the so-called model, the scheduling, and so on and so forth. I think that's all about it. Thank you.
Yes, it must be very, very busy at the moment, Jakarta. Must be, I can imagine that. Great. So there are everyone, the esteemed panelists. I mentioned earlier that myself from Maybank, I only been put in this position for 2 years. Prior to that, stay and live and work in the UK for 20 years, looking after 3 regions. ASPAC, EMEA, and North America, and basically on pricing and data analytics. So it seems that everyone here, they have their hands dirty with the data, basically. So we can say that we are more or less expert on these data-related activities. So without further ado, this is about data transformations. One of the issues here is how actually we see this, think about the organization with the data at its core. Is this something that in a dream? Is this something that reality? Do we need to be using it now? When should the company think about the data as its core? Let me start with the lady first here, Dr. Mary.
Thank you. By the way, I think we try to have more diversity and inclusion. I don't know if we still start with the ladies, but we can probably start with the doctors too. So then I'll go first. So just jokes apart, I think companies should always talk about change, because when we stop changing, this is when we die. So it's about the constant evolution and transformation, and at different stages of the lifetime of an organization, we have to transform through different systems and methods. In the past 20 years, we've seen lots of transformation systems and methods. 30 years ago, the conversation was about electrification, then digitalization. Now we are looking at transforming with data and putting data at the center. I think this is just part of a journey. In the current journey around data, every organization should have their data maturity as a constant journey. And every company is at different stages for different historic reasons. Startups might start cloud native and might have an easier journey. More traditional organizations or more traditional industries might have a higher degree of complexity. And we are all on our own journey. Even within the same organization, there will be different levels of maturity, pockets of excellence or fragmentation of systems. And I think it's for us to set this journey that helps whatever different areas are, that helps people make the right decisions towards the right level of maturity. So we should start always with the talent and the culture of the organization, bringing in the right skill sets, closing the gaps around skill sets. This, for example, could be cloud expertise, then driving an integrated stack of vendors, technologies, solutions that helps us integrate and have a single source of truth around data. And then the last one is really bringing these solutions to life and really driving value and measuring the output on the organization. So I think I see it more as a journey. And if an organization is not thinking about data today, they might not exist tomorrow. So it's an imperative. It's not an option anymore.
Brilliant, fantastic. It is imperative. Are you agree with that, Peter?
Yes, totally right, Dr. Mary and Sonny. So to add to that, on top of the current way of us using data in our daily life, right? Every single thing that we do, the moment that we wake up to go to work and then come back to work and to doing the play as well, all revolving about data. And what I can share as well is that how I actually see it through the evolution of an organization from lacking of data usage to driving the whole transformation and drive all the decision making through data. So to bring it up, when we first started, or what I can see that in Plus, the data is all over the place. It's a very siloed. So in short, that every division, every department has their own data storage. But what is lacking here is that the function can still going on, the organization can still run, the business can still run. But what is lacking is that the uplift of the value that we can get from consolidating all the data in the single source of truth, that is lacking. So a massive data transformation has taken place in the last 1 to 2 years. So we built a proper data lake in place, connecting all the sources that we have into a single source of truth. And this is where we will be able to build a lot of dashboard for our management, new tool and also usage tracking, as well as what are the customer behavior, which is the key for us to actually expand our business further. So after this kind of transformation, we can see that the whole organization, the mindset, the people, right, start to change. So now when we go into a meeting, right, the first thing that we put on the table is that, okay, what are the trend that you see today, right? So how do you prove that this hypothesis is right? How do we ensure that this particular journey is correct, etc.? So we start to emphasize on the data that we go. And we can see that the trajectory is that the business start to expand. We start to venture into different type of business apart from the core business that we have. So in summary is that it's very, very critical, or it's very, very crucial for an organization. Yeah, if those haven't start to utilize whatever data that they have, they should actually start it now. As what Dr. Mary is saying, it's already imperative and it's a need for organization to do so.
Brilliant, fantastic. It seems that you managed to get everyone to understand about the importance of the data in your organization, coming from the silos, and then people think that data is important. What about you, Kirill? What about the journey in your company?
Well, I definitely agree with what was said. In our company, I believe we have very similar journey that most of the company, which means, in the departments that are not used to use the data, it's always better to start very simple, right? Not being overly ambitious, not starting with too difficult models, at least from my experience, right? So usually we assess each department and how they use the data when we try to help them. And then we see what kind of level of models we should use. If they are not using the data much yet, we are usually tending to even not do models. We are tending to just do some dashboards or some quick analytics. And going there slowly, step by step. I believe it can be very bad to try to do the hardest stuff at the beginning, because usually then you don't realize the data issues, or sometimes the department or the client that you work for, they are not really sure what they want, right? And only after you show them some result of your analytics, they maybe can realize they need something a little bit different. So this is my data journey that we have in Home Credit, and I believe is applicable for other companies as well.
Yeah, I think it makes sense as well. We start small, just to get engagement with other people, get buy-in, they understand it, there's a result, and then move on. What about you, Juan?
Sure. I think there are many good comments already shared here. So just one perspective from me. So I think to answer briefly about your question, yeah, data is real and it's still a journey. It's not the end, right? So based on the perspective, I think what is crucial is to align data into the bigger picture in the sense about our organization direction or strategy or approach. So in our context at Jakarta Smart City, we are one of the agency in Jakarta government out of 200, 300 other government agencies. So we need to understand the priority of Jakarta as a city and Jakarta as a government administration. So based on that, then we can leverage Smart City as a phases and a platform. So we use data in overall strategy. So we have various phases. Let's say Smart City, firstly as a data. And then after that, Smart City as a hub. And after that, Smart City as a platform. And after that, Smart City as an ecosystem. So I think based on that, I can argue that our data has a really good and exciting journey, and it is reality, but the reality can be more and more exciting. Thank you.
Brilliant, fantastic. What about Coca-Cola here, Rahul?
Sure, sure. So I can share some perspective. I think before I talk about Coca-Cola, I think just the concept of data as core is so interesting. I'll take everyone like maybe 100 years back. And, like in old days, how companies used to grow and do businesses. If you are Coca-Cola and you have the power to put a billboard, you know, 3 continents apart, I mean, people will know about you and you will grow, right? Now, the way society operates has been changing and transforming over time. Everybody is on digital platforms. um, I mean, my 7-year-old daughter is very digitally savvy to the extent that I get surprised at times. And we are generating tons and tons of data. And what's happening is some of us large organizations are kind of falling behind. And hence, people who are able to leverage data, like a small startup in Silicon Valley called Uber, is able to disrupt the entire taxi industry, right? So more and more what we're seeing is it's not about as an organization how you leverage data, but it's about how you build your business model around data. And what we are trying to do at Coke is now become more digitally pervasive. Look at, like, if you take food aggregator business, you have Grab, you have Uber, and then there are B2B places where customers are going. So we are trying to understand now the shopper behavior, how it is changing, how people purchase, how they show their reactions and emotions to the products they buy, and then build a commercial strategy around it, uh, versus trying to justify our existing business model based on the data we get. So, and I think the size of the company currently does not give us the benefit that it used to give in the past. A lot of small companies are able to move with a lot more agility and much faster and act because there's less risk, there's less bureaucracy and not. And yeah, so I think in nutshell, the journey we are on is trying to build our future business models around the data and go where our customers are, versus trying to kind of work on our existing business models, right? And just one thing I'll add, I think it was Peter who added that point. One of the big challenges we face is unifying our data and getting sense out of it. A lot of us spend multitude of efforts solving one business problem, and it's like an iceberg. You spend 70% of your effort in bringing data together and 30% doing the analysis. So there are some parallel efforts we are trying to build and de-democratize data. So we are trying to make sure everybody in an organization has easy access to good quality data to do their job and do their own analysis, and they have the tools available. And then we are also having a large focus on bringing the external data in to understand what's happening in the market and not just our own data.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I really like that discussion. This is talking about the journey. We're talking about the dashboard. We're talking about the start small, and so on and so forth, how to democratize the data. But nevertheless, we are faced with the hypes of the big data. Small and wide data, as opposed to big data, solve a number of problems for organizations dealing with increasingly complex questions on AI and challenges with scarce data use cases. So we're talking about here is the dichotomy of big or small. Rahul, do you have any idea about this kind of traction between big data or small data, and how you're going to see this?
Sure. I think my perspective is technical landscape have evolved so much with whole SaaS-based solutions, etc., that that decision or effort to build an infrastructure to use big data, small data, wide data, it's not a big hindrance right now, right? So when you look at data, it's more about how easily you can access that data, what value it can bring, what is the effort on it. And as an example, we are trying to do some segmentation exercises right now across geographies. And when we look at that, historically, we've been looking at internal data. Now we are trying to scrape the web and look at, all right, what are people saying on Google about this customer, and what's on TripAdvisor, what kind of ratings, what are the sentiments, and getting telecom providers data to understand the footfall in a particular square kilometer in a country and stuff like that, right? So I don't know if we can call it big data, if you want to call it white data. A lot of it is consultant jargons. I think
Yes.
a lot of data is there. We are trying to figure out what we can access, what we can use from that, because bringing it all together is a massive exercise, trying to make sense of it. Like one customer can have 100 different ways it is referred to. How do you know it's all those reviews about that same customer or different customers? And trying to prove that hypothesis. So my kind of advice to people going this journey will be, don't worry about technical platform so much. Teams will figure it out. Worry about what's happening in your user base or consumer base or shopper base, and then what data they are generating and where, and how you can access and how you can make sense out of it.
Yes, indeed. I can buy that immediately. We are people that are dealing with data almost every day. Our career based on that. So for us, you can call it big data, you can call it small data, it doesn't matter, it's just data. So Peter, what do you think about this?
Yes, totally concur to that, right? So I think the hype in the market is talking about big data all along, but it doesn't mean that we have to have really a huge data for us to do something. So maybe I can share a little bit about what we have been doing as well. So before we actually set up the whole data lake that connect all the different data sources into a single source of truth. So what we did is actually, it's kind of painful, but we actually aggregate the data via a small server to connect the key variables or the key information. So by doing so, we are able to build a simple customer segmentation, as well as doing a few predictive modeling to identify the customer trend. So of course, with a new capability in place, where we have a huge data, we consolidate everything in the proper state in a more structured manner. There are more use cases that we can bring on, and also the use cases will start to get more complex. But I totally agree, right? Where we should actually start from small, where we try to get to accustom ourselves to know what information or data that we have, and you'll be surprised, yeah, of the outcome that we can come out with it, things that we can do, and the value that we can actually generate from whatever data that we have. So the key takeaway that I would like to share is we can start small, but most importantly is that we shouldn't take a step back from pushing it through, because there's a lot of challenges for us to bring it through, especially the usual that there's a problem in the people, process, and technology. At the same time, also we also need to ensure that the policy of the company is also in place to actually support the whole data exercise, and also to come up with a new value to from the data that we have. Yeah, so agree on that, Sonny?
Fantastic, great. So you're talking about the policy here. One of the issue, I don't know whether in Jakarta, Juan, you find this issue as well or not. It's about data governance. I'm sure that you mentioned earlier that the data that you are utilizing is for the sake of your Jakarta citizens. How do you see this? How do you govern the data for the Jakarta?
Sure. Thanks for the wonderful question, Pak Sony. And just to share a bit, I have been contributing in this kind of topic in other so-called security conferences in the last 2 to 3 months. And if you know that there's a so-called recent case in the national level about the so-called data breach in Indonesia. So I think we are fully aware on that as well. So I'll try to tackle from 2 or 3 points. So the first one, I think in terms of the urgency, yeah, I think typically as an organization, we may not put sufficient attention, I have to say, about security or about this kind of so-called governance if something is not so-called broken or if accident is not happening. So sadly, that's the situation. And secondly, we need to prioritize because we cannot secure everything at the same time. So if I put analogy of my colleagues in security, what is your crown jewels in the museum? Yeah, so that's what part that you need to really protect. So I think for us in Jakarta, it's about our citizen data because we are actively building our so-called digital transformation, digital ID in the Jakarta level, whereby it's quite similar with the customer 360, whereby we are able to understand the citizen in individual level about their so-called economy, about their demographic condition, about their subsidy, even some of their so-called transactions, let's say about with our services. So I think we are building this, and for sure, many people will target this kind of data. And then the third one is about the practical steps. I think when we talk about security, it's quite similar with other technology initiatives. Yeah, we need to align between process, between technology, people, structure, strategy, and so on. So I think I try to put into a bigger picture how this so-called privacy, governance, and security initiative will be influential, not only from the technical perspective, but also, let's say, to the concrete implication to the citizen data. Let's say if your data is breached or being so-called hacked, right, it can be utilized by other so-called crime cases, especially about the bank account violation and so on and so forth. So I try to bring the use case in this context. And again, for the smart city to be practical, we are aligning progressively with the ISO standard about technology governance, security, and so on. I'm not saying that we are perfect, but we are fully aware about the importance, and we want to significantly improve in the next 6 to 12 months. Thank you.
Brilliant. So again, it come back to the what Mary earlier mentioned, that this is part of the journey that everyone sometimes have to face. You're not mature enough, are you mature, are you in the middle of those, and kind of things. Right, now we're talking about the application of this in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning to protect your business. Kirill.
So basically, when we try to use the machine learning methods, or even like I call it machine learning, but mostly our solutions are even automation, right? So first thing we do is to make sure it's operational. We meet up with the client for whom we are doing the project, or internal client, I mean, so other department. We try to look at their processes and we try to find the low-hanging fruits where it's not efficient. Then we try to make sure that we can automatize it and give it to them so they're fully independent, right? So we don't need to do the business as usual for them, right? Because this is not our goal as a science team. This would be very negative, let's say. So for example, I will give you a practical example of one project. So we met up, for example, with the Castex team, and we just discussed with them, and we realized they are reading some feedbacks from customers manually, right? When they are calculating Net Promoter Score, and there is also some free text feedback. So they were doing it manually, right? So they were just reading few random sample of feedback and just manually assigning, saying how it changed month by month, right? Which is not very efficient. So what we did, we discussed with them, we did a text mining model, we did some automatic dashboard from this text mining model, and we implemented it. And right now the model is being run on itself, and we have to just refresh it once a year. They have all the dashboards and everything. And I would say this applies also for others. Like quite often we can create a lot of reports, but then we realize the client is not reading them, even though they asked for it, right? But they don't have, they get excited. Some stuff is interesting, but they don't have like capacity to read these reports every month. So what we start doing instead is doing some kind of triggers. So we have for each report, we have some automatic triggers that says that in the report there is something interesting in certain field or in certain graph, right? And if we see this, we automatically send email to the client, hey, there is something interesting in this and this report. We believe you as a human should look at it because it can drive your decisioning. So basically, this is how we do it.
So about the usage, basically, for the clients, isn't it? So yes, fantastic. I'm going back to Dr. Mary here. you mentioned earlier about the journey, which is everyone here also describe it. So we did talk about how important is data for the business. We talk about how big or how small is data all about. And then we talk about the governance and the application of it. All of this surrounding the usage, utilization of data for the business. Question for you, Mary, is how can we build a team that able to address all of this? First of all, maybe from your perspective of the banking industry, maybe from your experience in the past, or and then we can share it with all the panelists here and audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. I think this is a very important question because as we go through this journey, we tend to forget that companies are just artificial contractual entities that we use to transact and pay taxes. But what we really have is people. So people are behind companies. And as we go through the evolution of how we work with data, with technology, with systems, one of the most important things is to have a high-performing team. And we need to evolve and adapt the skills of this team to the new techniques, the new technologies, and we need to help them set up into a system that allows them to continuously learn. So it's important that we, in any organization, look at how are we recruiting people? How are we onboarding and training them? How are we enabling them so they can be a high-performing team from day one? How are we retaining them? Because it's an incredibly hot area. It's very difficult now to find people with the right skills. It's very difficult to upskill people who have maybe been 20 years in their roles, and setting the most important thing is to set a continuously learning culture and enabling them to continuously test and develop deliberate practice initiatives. So Kirill was before talking about Kaggle competitions. So creating this culture, this geeky culture that helps our teams continuously adapt to what's new. Because it's very easy for an organization to give, maybe AI and model development to a vendor. But the challenge with that is that the most important thing that we have is our learning curve. And evolving the maturity is our responsibility. And no vendor can do that for us. And when we outsource a core competency, we lose the ability to learn. And this is extremely important. So we are setting principles around how we work with data. And the most important one is we protect our data, because we protect our customers, our reputation, and our business. The second one is we protect our intellectual property, which means the ability to learn how to create these models and how to continuously evolve into this learning journey is extremely important. And that's why it's important that we remain focused on open source, on cloud native environments, and that we continue to evolve our learning and the skill sets that are required for the future of each of our industries.
Yes, I just want to share this as well. I think I'm with you on this, that building a high performance team is ideal for everyone to have, of course, but that's not easy to do, because we need to understand where are we within the journey, where are they, our team that we need to recruit. And I'm agree with you as well that there's all of this from the recruitment process. Who are they that we want to take on board? Once they're on board, onboarding program and so on. Yes, I just want to give an example. Here in Maybank, I also developed what we call as a DSDP, Data Science Development Program. This is actually a year-long program that we start with thousands of people and then shorten into hundreds and then shorten into few, only 15 to 20 people end up with us. And these are the people that will be, if they pass this whole year, they will be ready. And then I guess one of the challenges you mentioned earlier, how can we continuously, number one, retain, number two, challenge them? Because this is part of the learning, I guess. Nevertheless, again, I'm sure everyone here agrees that part of the a good team, not only that We have a very good strategy on that. As Rahul mentioned, that strategy based on the data that we have, not just product push, but we're looking at actually what the customer wanted on that. So I have another question here. This is about how can we deploy new models if you're talking about that. If we're talking about remotely or with certain agility. Rahul.
Sure, I can talk a bit about it. So, I think in most companies I've worked with and general industry today now, we all want to fail fast and fail cheap. And what we tend to do is not put all our eggs in one basket, try multiple different things as POCs and work in agile methodologies where we are able to test hypotheses in 2 weeks 3 weeks time versus waiting for 6 months and 1 year to see the output. And being able to do that is helping us narrow down on what potentially could work much faster, and then we put all our effort in scaling those. So this has been like a way of working transformation for my entire team, and now expanding into the group where agile is the way of working. I mean, there is no other way. You have to deliver in 2-3 weeks. I mean, we don't talk months and years anymore, and we always go with a bucket of options and invest behind all of those until we are sure that one of them is something which will scale for us. So yeah.
Anyone want to add any more about this? Peter, possibly?
Yeah. So I think apart from on top of it, so what we also need to look into is the data cleanliness. So from my experience, that a lot of time that we actually spend is actually to massage the data to the right level before we can actually build a model. So I would say that more than half of the time is used to build the model. So that's why the key thing that the learning that I have is that we have to ensure that the data structure, or at least the data tables that we build are robust enough, yeah, for us to actually use it for a different type of models or different type of use cases all the time. So one of the key things is that ensuring we have a customer analytics record, or we call it as a singular view of all the variables of the information about the customer, where we can continuously using the same table, and maybe in the different use cases we added on in the different data sources to build a model. So the trick is that the development of the data source data table is crucial to save the time. Like if you want to do in the agile mode, 2 to 3 weeks to come up with a model, etc., it's totally possible. But we have to ensure that the data cleanliness, readiness are there as well. Yeah, to start it off. And apart from that, is actually of course the skill set that we discussed just now about how do we get the right people, etc. So one of the things that I also learned is that or the use cases of the things that we run, we have to have a clear objective or a clear goals that we want to achieve. That will actually surely motivate the team, especially those data scientists and even the data analytics team, on whatever analysis or models that they build, there is a real outcome, a real value of the work that they do. So one of the traits is that that I also learned is that clarity, transparency, as well as a clear goal of all the analysis of use cases that we do are also crucial to ensure that we retain the talent that we have in the organization.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we'll agree with that. This is about the data transformation again, building a data-centric strategy for digital acceleration. We heard about so many facets of how important data is, how can we utilize that, people behind it, and so on and so forth. I have 2 questions here for everyone. Number one is, if you want to deploy this strategy, please give me 1 sentence. What is the most important? Juan, from you first. 1 sentence.
I'll try to be brief.
This is as a wrap up.
practical and concrete. I think I'll start from there. If it is practical and concrete, people will appreciate, people will be triggered to accept, to scale up, and then to support you. I think that's my comment.
Okay, fabulous. So practical and concrete. And then what about you, Kirill?
I would say it should be understandable and explainable and starting simple, which is somehow correlated. If we want to use the data, I think this is the most important part. We should understand it very well. We should understand the algorithms. We should understand and we should explain it to our client, and we should really start simple.
Great. What about you, Mary?
I think it's very important to have a very strong call to action from the top that sends a very clear message, not just the fact that this is an imperative, but how are we going to achieve that and what is required for the whole organization to drive this transformation. I think it's not just a journey for one team trying to change everything. It's really from the top to get that call to action in place.
Fantastic. Who's next? Rahul?
Sure. I think my input would be don't wait for perfection. I think there'll always be one person who would not agree to the data or who does not like the way charts are appearing and stuff. And in that, we lose out larger value that can be driven. So go fast, go with what you have, build your hypothesis and try to prove it versus waiting for every set of data that you need to start.
Last but not least, Peter?
Yes, for me, it's very simple. Simple, value-driven with clear outcome in place. And run fast, fail fast, and pivot fast.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have all of this has to be practical, has to be understandable, explainable, start simple, start from the top management, don't wait for perfection, it has to be value-driven. That are the message from us, everyone. And thank you so much for the panelists. And with this, I'll send it back to the MC.
Thank you so much to all our panelists on what a great topic. Thank you all for joining us.